guys, what's up, and welcome back to my channel. So, God, the video we have today. So, if you saw my last video, I discussed the Twitter communities of the paraphilia, essentially, where you're attracted to criminals, especially crimes such as rape, murder, armed robbery, violent crime of sorts, and we were specifically talking about Columbiners, the stans, even fans of not even Columbine, but Ted Bundy, Dylan Roof, Jodi Arias. Those people just came out of the woodwork as usual. So I'm sorry to tell you that actually I did interact with one of those stans. I stand corrected. I don't think there's anything wrong with idolizing a serial killer. I mean, in the end, who am I to judge? They just have a valid argument. Just kidding. They had terrible arguments. Most of the arguments were focused on my appearance, so that's when you know they ain't got shit. I got quite a few DMs about the community on TikTok. Now, am I surprised that there's a community on TikTok? No, I'm more than anything surprised that it's taken me this long to either get messages about it or for me myself to come across it. Some of these videos were actually on the For You page on TikTok. Now, TikTok is an app like Musical.ly, like Vine, where you can do short skits or lip sync, and the For You page is essentially where, depending on what you like, mine is all animals essentially, so I only get animals on the For You page, they'll push content your way, and all the content that is pushed on the For You page gets more traction than content that isn't, obviously, because it's kind of like a version of trending. So some of this made it to the For You page, which is kind of concerning that murder stan videos would occur. I should add, it's also interesting that this ended up on the For You page, because I remember I did a video making a joke about me being suicidal, and I understand that that's dark, but for the algorithm to push forward videos that are compilations of murders, it's just, I wonder kind of what the standard is. But I figured we could look at some of them. I have to take off the music because of copyright, and also because one of them used a Lana Del Rey song, and if you didn't know, I'm a Lana stan, so it's doubly egregious to me. So there's an account called @Kleebolds. So I thought it was gonna be a Columbiner account. Apparently it's a Ted Nation account, and if you know, I've talked about Ted Nation, aka the Ted Bundy stans, and there is one sole thing that they don't want to hear, and that thing is electric chair. Apparently it's a slur. So one of the things they post are fan cam style videos. Now, if you don't know what a fan cam video, it's pretty much when someone just makes a compilation of video clips of their celebrity, and they might put in some editing and some music, and that's pretty much it. But obviously it's done by a fan, so the intent is to say, look at this great person, they're so talented, they're so great. Which makes sense with a celebrity or a musician, but with a murderer, it's kind of like, what do you mean?
It's the dream.
So for context, the music in this particular clip was Doja Cat's Tia and Tamera, and the reason that I'm bringing that up is because all the songs that they pair with this are usually, I want to say, have a sexualized kind of tone, or usually that indicates the person in this video is hot. Does that make sense? I don't know if I can explain that thoroughly, but the music choice is always very particular to be like, look at this attractive person. So one of the things that I like to bring up about the stans of any murderer really is that the stan in question would not be an exception, aka, for example, Ted Bundy would probably murder and rape you like he did to anyone else, because why, you're not an exception, essentially, which is horrible, but that's the reality at hand. So this person was responding to that by posting this. So it says, stop saying that Ted would rape me and kill me. I know that already, so there's no need to spam that. Also, it wouldn't even be rape because I wouldn't say no to him, and if he murdered me, I would be fine with it. And now this is where I wonder how far the delusion goes, because in one way, I feel like a big group of them, of the stans, think that they would be the exception, that they would bond with the killer and, you know, they would be not like the other girls, whatever. I think there's another group where the delusion has gone further into, yes, they probably would rape and murder me and I'm okay with that, which is frankly scarier to me because it seems like there's kind of a cognitive dissonance, kind of like the thing where in your head you glamorize trauma and traumatic events so much that you feel like when they happen to you, they're gonna be, you know, sadly beautiful or something like that. And the murder and the rape might even be a turn on, who knows, but it's just glamorized to this point where they're fine with it. But I really hope that this isn't a long-term thing because I can feel this becoming a dangerous pattern, because what happens when you start standing someone who's still alive and perhaps accessible? So then I was checking the comment section of this last video I showed you, and someone commented aptly, "Too bad you couldn't experience what the other poor innocent girls went through in their final hours of life." The creator would said, "I would happily swap with them." And then someone else said, "You would like being torn apart and your eyeballs being gouged out by knives. That's what he did. He don't love you. All he want to do is brutally murder you." And the person said, "Yeah, sure, I would love it as long as it's Ted." I was looking into who the Klebold's account was following, and it turns out that there are a bunch of other accounts that kind of cater to the same kind of content, perhaps different killers. So interestingly enough, since this fuckery is just like not already just a shit show, I found a TikTok that whole ass asks you to pick Ramirez or Bundy. And then you can pick both, and it's all this nice little compilation that's so aesthetic. So then there was another one that just has a bunch of pictures of Ted Bundy with the text, "My boy," on it. And then it says, "Rest in peace, Teddy. You will always be missed and I will never stop loving you. You deserved so much better. I'm so sorry, but your soul will live on and you will always be in our hearts." I don't even think I really need to comment on this one. And in the comments, understandably, much like me, people are trying to hope that this was a parody or a joke or satirical, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's not literally what they're thinking. So someone said, "I can't tell if they're joking or not," and the person said, "I'm not joking." Multiple times, even people were saying it's very vile to joke about, and they say that they're not joking. So I almost think, to be honest, if someone made a satirical account making fun of the people who keep saying, like, humanize this person, they were a real person, which, I mean, I think we all remember that they're a real person. It's just some of them seem pretty devoid of humanity if they're gonna go and just murder and rape people, but I digress on that point. And I found another account lastly. In the description it says, "I hate him for what he did, but he's heart eye emoji. May the victims rest in peace." Now, again, I find this extremely cognitively dissonant in the sense of, you can look at a picture of a serial killer and separate the serial killer from the picture in the sense of, you can just look at a picture, say, of Ted Bundy. You don't know it's Ted Bundy. You don't know what he did. You can look at that picture and say, I find that person conventionally attractive. That's possible. I don't agree, but that's possible. However, it's also a different thing to see the picture of Ted Bundy, full well knowing what Ted Bundy did, so you have the context, and still think he's very attractive. There's a difference between the two, in my opinion, because one of them is just superficial, like, yeah, that's an attractive man. It's a different thing to still think he's a deeply attractive man, knowing what he did. Does that make sense? That's how I see it. In these accounts, even if in your bio you write, "Oh, I'm so sorry for the victims," in the end, what you're doing kind of nullifies how sorry you are for the victims. Because if you're truly sorry for the victims, would you be making compilation videos with like a bunch of different pictures of him, or like him with a flower crown? Because even if you think he's attractive, did you need to bring it to that level? Do you think the victims would be on board with that and would be totally like, yeah, it's totally fine that you think that he's hot. Make compilations all day, sis. Like, I don't think that's what would happen. I've talked about hybristophilia a little bit here and there on this channel, but I never talked about a certain aspect that I actually hadn't thought of prior to an article that I read, because like I said, usually what I think it is, various delusions of either you're not like the other girls and guys and, you know, they'd make an exception for you, or you've deluded yourself into thinking you're okay with being murdered and raped by the person. Two sets of delusions, in my opinion. But I actually found an article that brought up another thing that I actually hadn't thought of, and it's more logistical. So this article references a doctor called Louis Schlesinger, PhD. He's a professor of forensic psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So he's going to be quoted. Schlesinger said, "Criminals can make the perfect boyfriend in a way. These women know where their boyfriend is at all times, and they only have to share positive encounters with him. Weirdly, it's controllable and a safe relationship option." We're also going to be quoting Jeffrey Ian Ross, PhD, who's a criminologist and professor at the University of Baltimore. Think about it. Most of these women only see these men for occasional visits in their prison, during which the man is on his best behavior, says Ross. If not, she may never come back again. They also don't have to deal with any of the disappointments that can come up in day-to-day relationships, like cleaning up after a boyfriend or getting annoyed by drug or alcohol use. So I hadn't thought of that aspect, mainly because a lot of these stans, their icon, their favorite is dead, but for the ones who are still alive, it actually would make sense that there is that kind of controllable nature with a man who's in prison, because he can't just do whatever he wants. Though it's kind of, I think, also scary to think that you're safer, or your man is safer being in prison. And it says, there's also a feeling of being needed. Clearly these women provide criminal men with much needed attention, and in turn they get a sense of purpose, usually to help them through a trial, says Schlesinger. Women who pursue these relationships may also be interested in getting attention from family, friends, and the media themselves. They might want to be in the limelight as well, regardless of the reasons associated with it. I definitely hadn't really thought of the needy aspect, in the sense of you kind of are someone's connection to the outside world. If, like I said, the criminal is in jail and you're the one coming to visit, you're kind of in control. You choose when you come in, you choose what you bring them. If anything, you can just not go see them. And I just feel like overall the control is essentially in your hands as the stan, right? And so I didn't really think of that aspect so much, but it unfortunately, in a very morbid way, makes sense. I still hate it, but it makes sense. So I just thought it would be interesting to look at the psychological perspective, just because it does lend a certain amount of understanding. I still don't really understand why exactly people choose to idolize these people over anyone else, especially those who are dead. But in a sense, maybe that also pertains because the fact that they're dead gives them a fair amount of projecting to do, right? Because if someone's dead, they can't answer anything, so you can put whatever you want on them, and technically it's there because you're the one to see it. You guys can let me know what you think the reason is, like the main reason why people become hybristophiliacs. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.